Hey, welcome to the Cam and Otis show. We are joined by a special guest. Great timing too. I'd like to say that was all because of my pre-planning and expertise in planning. But we are joined today by Lieutenant General Mike Ferriter, the CEO and President of the Veterans Memorial Museum, which I am super excited for a couple of reasons because I think I've got a Christmas event coming up at the museum here in just a few weeks, so I'm going to
Right.
get some insider information. Sir, how you doing today? Good to have you.
It's great to be with both of you, and I'm doing just fine. Thanks.
Good, good. Sir, tell me what drives your effort because yeah, I mean you've been doing a lot, sir, for a long time. And what is it about the Veterans Memorial Museum that excites you to dive into it every day?
Well, it's the impact on the lives of our veterans and their families, and the impact that we can make on kids in the community, and the impact that we can make on the team. You know, I had a platoon of 123,000, and now I got a platoon of 48. And but there's still people that are learning and growing, and a chance to lead and try to lead by example. But if we had to go get to one word, it's veteran, and that's why we slam the car door and run to our desk, or run to the meeting, or run to the event every single day.
That's awesome. It's that that's part of what drives me too with what I do, giving back through helping veterans transition out or soon to be veterans transition out, because it's giving back to our tribe, right, sir, and supporting them.
Right. Definitely.
So
Yeah.
I want to test your memory, sir. Uh, going back, going back to the days of the Citadel. What's a lesson that you learned from one of those NCOs that today is still like that's my go-to thing from Sergeant Sergeant Snuffy, Sergeant Jones, whatever, back at the Citadel.
I think lead by example. At first, when you're a freshman, we call them knobs because you're like a doorknob head shape. Um, but it was immediately clear that the really good leaders were doing the right thing, and showing you and teaching you and bringing you along and holding you to a standard. But then they lived to the standard also. And then there were others that taught you, or you did 1,000 push-ups a day for kind of thing, and they were tough guys, but they weren't very good leaders. And so from the beginning, it's always thought. I think I always want to be the example that everyone says, you know what, a guy who lives by what he says and does what he says is Mike Ferriter, and so I even today try to do that.
Do you, how much does that inspire how you looked at your post-Army career and, towards retirement, of still setting that example for what veterans should be doing after that transition?
Well, in part, I have two sons and two daughters, and three of whom have served and are paratroopers also, and Rangers. Um, and then, and so I think I still have to, whether I'm retired or still on active duty, I've got to lead by example as a dad and as a husband and as a friend, and not get slouchy or sloppy or anything like that. So, and then when you're selling to this group, my team here at the National Veterans Memorial Museum, that we got to take care of these veterans, and they will make communities better. They will make companies better. They will make the schools where they bring their kids to better. And then if I were not living a living example of that, or trying to be as good as I can be, then it would all be hollow, and this would be a job instead of a journey.
How did you find that, sir? One of the things that it's a common thread for all of us veterans is this the sense of service, and like we just said a minute ago, giving back to the veteran community, the veteran tribe. How did you settle in on the Veterans Memorial Museum?
Yeah. So I retired in 2014, and so I grew up in a home where my dad had been an Army private. He went to OCS, and so we would roll our socks with a smile and answer the telephone growing up. Colonel Ferriter's quarters, Mikey speaking. This line is unsecured. And but I knew from the start, my dad would always say, "Hey, look, the mission and the men is what counts, and when you take care of the team, then things will get done." Then I went to a military school, left the beach of Monterey and Carmel, California, with shoulder-length hair, and a week later, a shaved head, and I'm in South Carolina. But again, it was a leadership factory as well as a doggone good school. And then commissioned as an infantry officer, and again, you start right away. Follow me, lead by example, be a paratrooper, get to Ranger School, and my first 18 years in the Army or so, I didn't leave a battalion, and there are not many officers that can say that. And so I went from mechanized infantry to Arctic paratrooper to 2nd Ranger Battalion to motorized 9th ID to the 75th Ranger Regiment, to 3rd Ranger Battalion, to Command Battalion at Bragg, Command 3rd Ranger, and then I made Colonel. And so that also allowed the being present all the time with the troops, with the paratroopers, with the Rangers, just made it that special. And then through no fault of my own, I made General Officer, and knew that again it was the opportunity to lead by example and make sure that the brigades below had what they needed, and that ultimately went to Iraq 3 times, and as well as duty in Mogadishu, Somalia with 3rd Ranger Battalion. Then I, as a 3-star, was given responsibility to run all the Army's bases around the world. So U.S. Army Installation Management Command. So I ran 75 cities in 17 time zones. But to get to the point of your question, we had the Wounded Warrior battalions. We had Soldier for Life and Transition Assistance Program, and we had Gold Star families. So when I retired, we looked to help new veterans who were trying to find jobs and find employment. And then we saw that there were actually veterans who had small businesses, and they were veteranpreneurs. And so I interviewed to be the secretary of the VA, was carried to the White House and all of that. And then the former president turned to Bob Wilkie and said, "You're acting, you're doing just great, don't worry about it." And the staff went, "Oh my God." And then I interviewed to be, I was a finalist with Mike Linnington to have the Wounded Warrior Project, and Mike got it, and he's done just a fabulous job, an amazingly fabulous job to turn it around and take care of our dear wounded. And then I actually interviewed to be the president of the Citadel, and I was a finalist, and my classmate Glenn Walters was selected. So I went home and told Margie, "I'm not doing so well, and I'm 0 for 3.
You were a bridesmaid at every wedding, weren't you, sir?
I was, and I kept catching the bouquet, right? And so then, but actually, I felt all along that the Lord had a plan, and He was going to put me somewhere, like He has our whole life. And the phone rang on May 14th of 2018, and it was a woman from Korn Ferry. They're a headhunter firm, and she said, "Would you be interested in interviewing to be the president and CEO of the National Veterans Memorial Museum?" And so I was at Fort Benning, and I said, where is it? And she said, "It's in Columbus." And I said, "Well, I'm in Columbus, Georgia. I don't." And she said, "No, it's in Columbus, Ohio." So that was the long run up, and when I came here, I knew right away that this was going to be a very special place in our life, and a huge opportunity to take what is set up as a museum and then use it as more than a museum, to greatly affect and impact the lives of our veterans. So here I am.
You talked about the huge opportunity of making that jump, but then just a little bit ago you're talking about running 75 cities, and now you have this workforce of 48 people. Even though there's a huge opportunity and you can make the impact, that's got to still take an adjustment period of just not having as many levers to pull, not having as many different tools at your disposal maybe. How did you go through that as the leader of kind of dropping down to a much smaller organization, but then still having that bigger purpose involved?
Yeah, I think every leader has to know what the we say employ your unit and your weapons within their capability, and so don't ask a platoon to take on a battalion's level of work or attack an enemy battalion unless maybe it's a Ranger platoon or an SF team, then they can do it no problem. but
It's a different story, different category.
Yeah. But see, so I mean, Camden, we were a complete startup. When they hired me, they said, General, you need to do two things. And I said, okay, took out my $50 notebook to write down things like you're supposed to. And they said, one, hire your staff, because nobody else has been hired. The museum itself was 95% complete. So picture, they gave me an aircraft carrier and they said there's no crew. So they gave me a museum, there's no crew. And so, and then the second thing they said is you open in 130 days, because that's the only day we could get General Colin Powell to give the speech. So complete startup. So to your question, it was okay, well, I probably need, a table of organization, and then I probably need to figure out how museums run, because we had the National Museum, and I was there quite often at Benning, and helped found the Army Museum from that job of running all the installations, but hadn't run a museum. But I've just said we're going to run it like a business. We're going to be, customer facing, oriented on the veterans, figuring a way to bring them the service they need. So at first it was open the doors and do the ceremony. I had decided that we would have a thing called Rally Point. And Rally Point is the first Saturday of every month. This Saturday coming up, last Saturday it was Calming Waters. It's how fishing, stream and river fishing, can put veterans at ease, get them connected with their tribe, and give them something healthy to do. So Rally Point, we've done one. 4 years, we've probably done 200. We do 50 a year, and so then the next one is Soldiers to Sidelines, and we'll tape that in this kind of format, and that's a guy who's a professional referee for the NFL, who teaches soldiers to be high school, college, and even pro. But all of those are programs that allow veterans who watch them to say, wow, I could do that, and I'm interested in that, or I have no interest in being a ref, but what other kind of programs are there for veterans? And then they go searching, and that's how we get our tribes reconnected from when they jump out of the airplane with no parachute, right? Called transition. And then further from there was, okay, so how do we do events? So we started with parties and board meetings, and then we went ultimately to weddings, and then we went to days on the green out. We have a large greeny area that we call the drop zone. I know that would surprise us. And events on the rooftop. And so you just build it like you're a startup, or if once we were a cohort battalion, and they gave us our NCOs, and you trained with them, and then you ran the privates through basic training in AIT. But it was a startup, and you just had to think ahead, make a plan, resource it, rehearse, and do it again. So now we've added a bunch of other programs that we'll talk about, but you have to start somewhere. And every week we do win of the week. Every member of the team has to provide a win of the week. They all look forward to it, and because you're building a team at the end of the day. And not everyone fit, and so some people came and some people left. And But what we want is people, every single one that really care about our guests, and especially our special guests, the veterans and their families, and the groups I cited.
Sir, I'd love some lessons on the hiring, because that's one of the things that businesses struggle with. You know, the military, they give us the guys, right? I mean, pretty much. You get a little bit of picking and choosing, but generally speaking, you get what the Army says you get. Out in the business world, we have to think about and talk to people and understand and how do they fit and all those sort of things. What's some business lessons in hiring folks that you learned along the way? Both, I mean, use your whole career, whether it's just from at the museum or in the Army too.
Yeah, so you're going to be, you want to have a high performance team, and you may hire people who don't know their job fully, but so what? You know, in the Army you're a private, and 4 years later you're a team leader teaching 3 privates, right? And so you know you got to hire and grow. The one thing that you cannot live with is men and women who lack character and integrity. And so in the interview process, it's to seek men and women of character who can like each other. So then you got to set a culture, and they have to know that they have to play within that culture and be the best that they can be, not the best in the unit, best in the team, best in the regiment, but just be the best that they can be. And then listen to them, right? And we have 25 events this week. We have 25 events. This is the Veterans Week Super Bowl, and so listen to and watch how they take something and take it to the next level, because the leader allows them to do that. So I think, you know, I've told everyone that I've hired here, if you cannot get along with your fellow teammates, I don't care how good you are, you'll be gone the next day. And I tell everyone, if you're dishonest or lack integrity or cheat or anything else, then you'll be gone the next day. It's non-negotiable. And then from there, people like positive leadership. I'm not saying I'm all that good and positive. I'm just saying that they like it, and so they'll we know what people will do for when they respect the unit and they respect the leaders. They'll do their best, and they'll give everything. And you know, we ended the year last year with, like, everyone had 25 days of leave that they hadn't used. That, you know, seriously, you know. And but they're just, I can't leave. So, you know, we entered this year by saying we're going to check in June, and then we're going to check in October, and you're going to go on leave, you know. So we're doing better.
You talked some about doing the research of, you know, I'd never ran a museum before as you were getting ready for this new position. How different of an approach do you think that you had than somebody who might have been, I don't know if you go to school to lead a museum, but somebody who has more of that background? How different of an approach did you have?
Well, I think, you know, starting with a blank sheet or blank, you know, whiteboard, I was free to innovate and create. And we had a guy come in from the Smithsonian that lasted about a month, and you know, he's too set in his ways. He's, we can't do that. We can't do that. You know, we can't do that. Yes, we can. You know, we're the one and only. We're the one and only National Veterans Memorial Museum. But you know, we can try. We can try. If it's legal and moral and ethical, we can try. They'll never do that. So this week we open up our Jiu-Jitsu Academy. We've been doing Jiu-Jitsu here for 18 months, and Fuji, shout out to Fuji, is we've taken all the patchwork of wrestling mats, and we've state-of-the-art, custom design, branded, are being put down, and we'll do a Jiu-Jitsu seminar on the 12th. We do Jiu-Jitsu on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. We do yoga on Sunday. And that's our resilience and wellness program. So we invented that, and we had 100 CrossFitters on the rooftop on Saturday, and we invited Dale King to come in. He's a friend I met during the inter years, the years between retirement and getting this job, and when I was out at an Oregon speaking event, and so he put on a great workout. So be innovative and creative is my mantra and our mantra to my team. When they ask, General, how do you want to do this? I say, you tell me, invent it, impress me, and they do.
So where I was coming from asking that is kind of like what you were saying, of that it's a position that was new to you, and that a lot of kind of that like explosive creativity and innovation comes from when you come to a new position. But then as you're going through, it sounds like you built that into your career as a whole. So how do you build that that culture of innovation for something that's not necessarily new to you, and you're building on layers of past innovations?
You have to challenge assumptions. When you have to go into it with a mindset, and our special operating forces are taught that from the beginning. Taught to ask that question. The candidness of our NCOs and our soft forces is, we're doing that. Why? Let me get this straight. But that's healthy. And then even and then don't sweat the small stuff. Don't sweat imperfection. People will go for it until you start nipping at them and changing this and changing that. Let them learn. Ask them, like you said, what did you learn at the end of this, and watch how they'll evolve anyways, because they want to do well. They just do it. When their name's on it, I had a truck platoon as a lieutenant. I let everyone put their name on the trucks, and then the truck stayed clean. I let them name their truck, old Bertha on the side, and I got called into the battalion commander's office. I said, hey, this is a truck platoon, don't sweat it, sir. They'll get beans and bullets on time, and they won't have any accidents, and it works.
Yeah, I love that. I love that personal ownership. I think that's something that I've talked about with a lot of business leaders when they talk about how to bring their team in, how to get them. It's like, hey, remember Maslow's hierarchy of needs? That very, very top piece of Maslow's hierarchy of needs is I have to feel like I'm part of something. I have to feel like I'm contributing. And when you have that personal ownership of the project, that is such a great way to bring the team together and get them focused on that outcome and make them feel like they're contributing to the success of the entire organization. Individuals don't cut it in that sense. And you just brought up something that I always love asking, and remember, this is just us here, sir. So, what was the best job that you had in the Army? I love asking this for
oh boy, yeah, I'm in big trouble. Well, it's a tie between commanding Charlie Airborne in Alaska and commanding 3rd Ranger Battalion. Remember now, I commanded 2nd of 504th, which is also amazing. I could say commanded 2 battalions. Commanded Bravo Company, 2nd Ranger Battalion, commanded Charlie Company. So if the job is being a commander, that's my favorite. But what unit was favorite? Yeah, probably 3rd Ranger Battalion and probably Charlie Airborne. And I'm still active with both of those organizations.
And so I know from my point of view what it was about my time in 10th Group, your time in the regiment. But I'd love to hear your point of view of what was it about the regiment that and for those of you, just to bring everybody up to speed, the Ranger Regiment, the 75th Ranger Regiment. What was it about the regiment that is just so that tie? It's almost hard for me to describe. I'd love to have you throw the ball at your court, sir, and give you a chance to describe what it is about that organization that pulls you so tight to it still.
I think it starts with standards, and all units have standards, and great units enforce them. And so the Ranger battalions and the Ranger Regiment, the standards are enforced. And there are lots and lots of stories of officers in particular who were really good platoon leaders and they wanted to come back as a captain or as a field grade officer, and they did not meet the standard. And there, most of the time since I got involved with the Rangers, most of the time, the regiment would not allow them to come back. Every once in a while, someone slips through. But the first is standards. The second part of the standards was everyone goes through the same selection and assessment program. The run standard, the swim standard, the PT test standard, the land navigation standard. And so every Ranger knew that his leader back then, or his or her leader today, everyone knew that they could lead, they could keep up. And then the other part was, like we talked about, it was this idea of innovation. Ran into him recently, a guy named Al Buford. He was out in 2nd Ranger Battalion in the late 80s, and he said these flesh hooks on the LBE suck. I'm gonna jerry rig. First we all jerry rigged, with webbing and cord. But then he got Velcro, and he started doing the first Velcro wraps on from their straps to your LBE belts and stuff. But then it was lasers, and then it was tack lights, and then it was shortened barrels, and then it shortened stocks, and then it was how to rig and be more effectively rigging to drop gear in, and then it was rigging motorcycles and throwing them out of airplanes, and then it was you've lived this just like I had, but it was that sitting there waiting to get on the plane, and someone saying, if we did this, and people weren't told no. The ASOP, the Airborne Standard Operating Procedure, it's tried and true, and so don't change it. But so being in an organization where you don't do something that you go, this is about 40% effective. If we make a change, it would be so much better. Then lightening the load, and then changing the frame of the Alice pack and the different rocks. So I like the innovation side, and I think that stays with me. And I like the enforcing standards, not strict and disciplined like that, but rather it allows an officer to say, excuse me, Sergeant, but what's the standard on X? And so there's no ass chewings going on. It's just, sorry, we're kind of messed up. We're ate up right now. We'll fix it. All right, thanks. Oh, do you need help? Is there something I owe you so you can get it done? And sometimes it is. Yes, sir. We didn't get X. Okay, I got that. I'm responsible for that. So that's what I liked about it.
I think there's a organizational lesson there, because you're talking about what I always love to call on the show garage innovations, which are the guy in the garage that makes this great thing, but if nobody else ever gets it, then it doesn't really do much. And then you're doing that in terms of a unit of the regiment, and innovating inside of there, but then you have probably one of the biggest bureaucratic organizations in the world, which is the Army, and getting those innovations spread throughout it. What is that process like? And I'll kind of open this up to both of y'all, because it's kind of just, how do you get those things to move up the line? Because if it is a real innovation, if it improves something by 40%, that's huge on the grand scale of things. But then there's so many layers of bureaucracy that can kind of stamp down those innovations. So what was your experience like with that, or what is your perspective on those garage innovations going up to the entire organization?
So when I ran all the Army bases around the world, I had a $12 billion a year budget. After 2 years, we had a $9.7 billion budget. So we innovated and saved almost $3 billion. And so the first is start with it. We're running a business, okay? We're not Army Installation Management Command. We're not Garrison. We're running a business. So who runs the best child development center in the Army? It was a woman in Ansbach. And so I think it was every Wednesday we would do a worldwide VTC, and we'd call out the hero of the week, and then that hero would describe to all the other, so there'd be garrison commander, sergeant major, and the other child development center from nearly every place except for Korea, which was 18 hours different or something. It was really hard for them. And then this woman would say, well, I do this and I do that, and I train my people this way, and we do the curriculum that way. So then it's, well, who runs the best golf course and why? How do they generate more golf rounds? Or why does Fort Lewis or Joint Base Lewis McChord have 2.5 times more people working at range control than does Fort Bragg and Fort Hood? 3 corps level, and so then you create authoritative database to see yourself, to understand yourself, and then you compare and contrast, and then you share. A lot of people say share best practices, but no, you share, and then the bureaucracy sits in, and if it's going to save $1 million, then you ask that woman, or that guy, do you think you're worth $1 million? You think I'm going to lose $1 million because you won't change? So, one of my friends, MWR director down at Fort Benning, says, sir, you're going to need to unencumber some futures here. You're going to need to set some people free. So again, we weren't yelling you're fired and stuff like that, but instead it was, hey, this is an enterprise. We're going to buy golf carts based on life cycle replacement plan, and no, Fort Benning, you don't get 3 new bass boats every summer, right? So by doing that, that's where the cost savings starts to roll in. And then looking across the garrisons and how they're organized, and then taking control of the number of positions that they're allowed to have. And not hiring the individual. That's still the thing that I did here. I hired my team here, and I let them hire, whether it was Detroit Arsenal or Fort Irwin. They hired, but they weren't allowed to have. We had a locomotive mechanic out in Utah without a locomotive, and so it's like, why do we? Well, he's assistant ops. We kept that position for 50 years, and when the railroad went away. So you gotta then you get out and you talk to people and tell them, here's what we're doing, and here's why, and I want your support. And do the town halls, be positive, be respectful, thank people for their hard work, because they're taking care of our families, for God's sake. Bring your sergeant major with you everywhere. And if he doesn't have a seat at the table, right, then I don't have a seat at the table. And that just sets the tone that they know, we're going to figure this out.
You just made me think of something, sir. And I went to the same school of thought with my NCO corps, and but there's no designated sergeant major in our business. How would you create, or what would you label it? How that person, that position, that thing in a business? Because you hit the nail on the head. That sergeant major is a reason I've got a sergeant major, and there's a really, really good reason. How can we create something like that in a business?
Well, so you look at the roles and the relationships and the responsibilities on your team, and so and you need someone who is going to be an advisor and confidant and not let you get out of bounds and be or lose your way. You need someone who cares for the youngest of your employees. The enlisted aspects of command is what first sergeants, what the NCO is responsible for. So I run jiu-jitsu, and I got a Marine, former NCO, and I said, you're the platoon sergeant of this 60-man element. And so I don't want to be involved in, what color gi they wear, or, that kind of stuff. You guide them along, be a positive leader. So here I have a chief of staff, and I have a DCOS, deputy chief of staff, and they fulfill that role. And oh, by the way, the deputy chief of staff is Jennifer Ballou, and she retired as a first sergeant, and she's a Gold Star spouse, and she's brilliant and super effective. And so you get the balance in those roles and relationships. You don't want. So someone told me once that a lot of general officers have a donkey, and I said, well, what's a donkey? And they said, well, a donkey, you'll notice, and you'll think of some right away, is racehorses are sometimes afraid to get into the trailer or get into the race chute. And so they have a donkey that is comfortable with, and it walks them into the chute or walks them into the trailer. You don't want to have someone in a figurative role in business who makes you feel good. You know, that's what the donkey, and I've known some very senior generals that just had a guy carry up, you know, for like 14 years, the same guy, and it'd be the one that'd say, General, calm down, you know, Sergeant or Senior Sergeant Major, calm down. You're like, what's that guy's Ranger buddy? What's going on here? So for business, you don't want that. It's ineffective. You want, in the roles, relationship, responsibility, your direct reports, they don't have anyone in between. They direct report. They're responsible to be honest and to be thoughtful and to be innovators and to encourage my thoughts in this case about innovation, to be a believer that it works. They may never have met anyone like me. And so they had to adapt to say, we don't have any idea where you're really going, but man, we're with you. We trust you, you know? And then that's what gave us veteran concierge service. So we connect veterans to employers, employers to veterans with an IT solution that matches their knowledge, skills, and attributes to that of the job description. It's not a resume. They fill out a worksheet. The company's called Oplign, Oplign, and we work hand in hand with them. And so they have really type classified all MOSs and the like, and based on what we check or what we write in, the computer will tell the veteran, you're fully qualified for these 16 jobs, and which of them are in California, because that's where I want to go. These 8. What are the 3 companies? This, and this. It also saves gobs of money for the employers, because all that resume screening, all that time spent on that goes away. So it's very successful. We started it. We're in the pilot right now, and next January 1st will be initial operating capability. But we said, you know, we can do that. You know, leader certification, we started that. And again, with Ohio State University, veterans can use their post 9/11 GI Bill and take master's level courses so that they can accelerate in promotions into different companies. So we're on our 4th semester of doing that. And then wellness and resilience, you know, we have, you know, so we had yoga, jiu-jitsu, and CrossFit this past weekend. And that's more than 300 people that came that otherwise would be somewhere else. And then our Veteranpreneur store, we have 48 veteran-owned companies that are providing merchandise, and you can go to nationalvmm.org and you'll see the store and Museum Exchange MX, and then order drop ship. And so why do we do that? Well, because those veterans were up on an OP somewhere, and they said, you know, hey, if we get through this crap alive, let's start that, Dogleg Reaper belt, or this knife company, or the, 9 Apparel, or Grunt Style Clothing, or Black Rifle Coffee. So those last 2 don't need a lot of help from us. They're doing pretty well. But a lot of the little guys, and the guys who will be veterans in 2 years and they're still in service, they could use some help to get going.
No, I love that, and I've got a special place in my heart for the veteranpreneur, also being one, and I find it interesting. One of the lessons that kind of actually just fairly recently, in the last handful of months, that I've learned is that you don't have to come up with a new idea to be an entrepreneur. And I've talked with so many veterans in the last several months that have this, I want to be an entrepreneur, but I don't have an idea. What should I do? And we talked to them about franchises and buy-in businesses and things like that. And I'm curious, have you looked at that side of the, you've got the what we would call the standard entrepreneur, right? Which is, I've got an idea, I'm going to turn that idea into a business. But what about the other side of that, the franchising, the buying a business? Have y'all looked at that?
Just a little at this point. Moreover through relationships with people who are doing that. And so, Ranger Mark Jones works with several food, Chick-fil-A and several businesses like that, but not as much, but it's a great option. I mean, so the veteran concierge, again, we can reach out to Chick-fil-A and say, we'll get you veterans, because, we help with standing up VERGs, the Veteran Employee Resource Groups. So a lot of companies don't know how many veterans are working for them, and or they do, and they're on their way. And I was with Worthington Industries last week, and met with their veterans. And this week I go to American Energy and Power. I go to Nationwide. I go to Big Lots just to talk to their VERGs. But that's a good idea to check in on franchising and see. And now some franchisers are they're snakes, and they'll take the NCO and make him pour unnecessary money in, and others are just fantastic. And I can say right now, Big Lots, sort of to your answer, has 1,400 stores, and it's like a PX outside the gate if you haven't been to a Big Lots. And but he wants to have a veteran hired for every store, and at the district level or regional level, and in his distribution centers. So go to Big Lots and Employment, or come to NVMM, nationalvmm.org, and if you're interested in finding employment.
Talking about, go ahead, Dan.
Well, I was going to ask him one of my go-tos is what's next? What's next at the National Veterans Memorial Museum, sir? What's the next innovation? How's that? How about that?
Yeah. Well, so when we went online, when COVID hit, nobody got furloughed. Nobody got fired. I told them, learn how to do virtual and digital stuff. And so Rally Point, which was bringing in about 75 people, we'd feed them brunch, make sure they're not living in a car, and that they were connected with someone. That was the initial plan for Rally Point. Rally Point today, 52,000 people will watch. And so what's next for the National Veterans Memorial Museum are to do programs that affect veterans nationally. So as an example, Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, Alliance Jiu-Jitsu, and Gracie Baja, that's about 400 Jiu-Jitsu academies. So a network of veterans training wherever, a national day for it. The yoga academies, same thing, creating a federation of those. CrossFit USA, Headquarters USA was upstairs on Saturday, creating that. We're not where I think we can be in the next area, which is the virtual museum. We have about 240 podcasts like this, and really we can organize those by categories. And if you're in a vet's home in Tacoma or Tampa and you want to hear World War II stories, then we can have them archived in the virtual World War II hall, right, exhibit, or the women in the military inspiring stories hallway. And then we have people come in. It happened again this past week. He said, this is my granddad, he's a World War II vet. This is his stuff. We want to give it to you. And so we can digitize that, and then have, not sure if we call them, distinguished members of the NVMM or something like that. But now the grandkids are spread all over the United States, they can go to see Granddad's story. And if he's from World War II, then he's in the World War II thing, or he's in Inspiring Stories, or he's in the Marines, whatever you Google, the same article, the same 7-minute video could pop up if you said Marine, or if you said Iwo Jima, or if you said, whatever. So search engine optimization in that case. So we're not there. So if I had to say what's next, what I'd like to see is that. And then when we do that, then we can get sponsors and donors that want their name on this exhibit hall and that exhibit hall. because we don't get any federal funds, even though we're the National Veterans Memorial Museum. So for all of your guests viewing this today, you can join as a member, and it will be very helpful in us doing much more of this programming. And again, either Google National Veterans Memorial Museum or Google nationalvmm.org and join as a member.
You know, talking about the different opportunities for veteran entrepreneurs, opportunities for people who don't want to be entrepreneurs, telling the stories, even, you know, just mentioning funding and those type of things, it's really got me thinking. If you could come up with one kind of, I like to call it like magic wand solutions, like it doesn't have to be super realistic, but if you were just like, hey, if we changed this one thing around the country, it would make the biggest impact. What's your one thing you would change to make the biggest impact on vets in the future? Whether it's taking care of them, more opportunities, telling the stories, what's your one magic wand solution?
Eliminate suicide.
Yeah.
And so I've got my training aid here. My executive assistant Dorian, every time she got something with a rubber band on it, she would wrap it onto a ball. And so the ball's about the size of a baseball. And I took a picture of it and sent it to this guy once. That's what PTSD is. That's what PTS is. And so we have to unwind each of those strands. And when you unwind those strands and release the amount of energy that's, you know, at the core of that, that's when suicides are going to drop. So the magic wand would continue to connect veterans to each other and healthy activities, whether it's fishing, equine therapy, pottery, songs, painting, jiu-jitsu, yoga, but just continuing to build more and more where people find out, you know, if I do that. So a lot of us, one of those, what did you create? Well, along with Matt Larson, I created Army Combatives when I was a colonel. And we were asked to make the Army tougher. And so Matt, Troy Thomas, Sergeant Nicholson, and myself rewrote the Army fighting manual. But so on all of these things, if we can get past the machoism of whatever event it is and into the connectedness of it, then we can make a big difference. And in the meantime, you know, Command Sergeant Major Jeff Hartless told me, hey sir, you know, you can't roll up your sleeves if you're wringing your hands. So start now. You know, you can't save $3 billion until you start saving $3 billion. So start changing things. You know, you can't have everyone basic training in the officer basic course doing hand-to-hand fighting again unless you start. And so that would be my magic wand, Cameron.
That's awesome, man. Well, boy, sir, this has been a great revisit for me. And when I think about what did I learn, it's you hit the nail on the head as a reminder for me, and that's the challenge, the assumptions, you know, and you know, yeah, maybe it was a bit of my upbringing in the special forces groups, or maybe it's just a little bit of that frustration in dealing with bureaucracy, but you know, challenge those assumptions wherever you are. Don't just go with it because that's what somebody else did. So that for me is what I learned. Camden, how about you? What'd you learn?
I love this. It was just such a simple example of that personal responsibility, but allowing the guys to name the trucks and then they take care of the trucks. I think that's something we talk about, personal responsibility and leadership all the time, and that is such a good, clean example of why it is so important to give people that responsibility.
Yeah, those guys were the outcasts of the battalion, right? They back then we had a thing, consolidated confinement facility, and so there was like a concentration camp. You know, if you got in trouble, there weren't easy chapters to throw people out, so they'd send them over there. They had a cadre that would just, you know, PT twice or three times a day, room inspections over and over again. And so when they would come out of CCF, I would take them. I said, I'll take anyone. I don't care, you know. So if it wasn't, you know, violent crime, and normally it wasn't because they could still court-martial. for those kind of things. And then I would say, hey, you're important, and this is your truck. And then they kind of ask, is this a legit question? And then the other guys would say, yeah, look, my truck is Chi-Chi, and this other truck is, Red Ball Express, and that's my name right there. So it gave them something that they otherwise didn't have. They were just a private in a platoon or a specialist in a platoon post-Vietnam in the middle of Kansas. And so it really works. It's the same thing that I do with my current team is, when I leave the office, I walk around and say goodbye to everybody. Just do. Have a good day. Thanks for what you did today.
How about you, sir? What did you learn today?
Well, I still think thinking about opportunities is what the leader has to do. Too many leaders that will. So as you asked the questions, I thought, well, what do I do? Where do I put my emphasis in order to answer your questions? And everyone gets this kind of super tight side picture of what's going on, and they're not looking for opportunities. And so this program today has reminded me that my job is look for opportunities, collect the dots, and connect the dots. Find people who are doing things in the same area, and convince them and show them how much we can do together. Because no one needs to get credit, but if you're not looking for opportunity, it does not come knocking on your door.
That's awesome, sir. Tell us again how we can support the National Veterans Memorial Museum, and how folks can get in touch with you and follow you. What you got going on?
Yeah. Okay. So it's by title National Veterans Memorial Museum. You can Google that. Or nationalvmm.org. You can just put that in. And then, connect with the veteran concierge. That's going to be the big thing for 2023 and 2024. We're going to be able to, and we're with the Disney Institute and with Mike Lennington and Wounded Warrior and JB Morgan Chase. So your company can connect. And then our platform, being the museum, not Upline, our platform now is getting veterans employment across the country. That's simple, too easy. Secondly, personally join as a member. So there's a lot of people say, well, what's in it for me? Well, what's in it for you is the fact that you're contributing to a bunch of people that are helping a bunch of people. So those are probably the two things. I'm on LinkedIn and Facebook and Instagram probably, but those are the ways. And WhatsApp and all these other things. So, reach out, and we just don't know what we can do together. So I really do invite everyone to get involved, roll your sleeves up, and show that you care.
Awesome, sir. Thank you so much, and I'll give you the early Veterans Day. Thank you for your service, sir. I appreciate what you did for the regiment and the big Army, and what you're doing now for us veterans, the veteran tribe. I really do appreciate that.
Oh, it's a pleasure. It was really great speaking with both of you today, and this platform that someone's going to hear something that one of us said, and it's going to be a life changer. And we don't know who that is, but we know that it happens, and so the time and effort and commitment that you put into this is really important, and I thank you for that.
Awesome, sir. Camden, run us out.
All right, thank you all for listening to the Cam and Otis Show, and a special thanks to our guest, General Ferriter, for joining us today. If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure to pass it along so someone else can enjoy it too. Follow the Cam and Otis Show on Facebook and Instagram. Full videos of our show are available on YouTube, and the full archive of our episodes is available at www.camandotisshow.com. Thanks again.